Hello everyone, it's Siam Kozeman again for the final, probably, episode of the Q&A session to the questions I received from patreon.com a couple of months ago. Today is the 10th of May 2023, and if you have just started watching this series, the summary is pretty simple. Instead of doing super chats, I am just answering questions from patreon.com supporters. Even if you support me even for $1 a month, or maybe more, you not only get to ask me questions to be answered on these special podcasts, but also you get to see a lot of excerpts, sneak previews, and art that's never seen anywhere else. For example, if you know me from All Tomorrows, well, you will be able to read snippets from the new upcoming All Tomorrow's rewrite. So there are the benefits of patreon.com for you. Okay. Yesterday, I had a case of bad bowel gas. I was constipated and there was like a sharp ache in my guts throughout the night. So today I'm drinking some soft tea and dosing up on vitamins and shit. Basically, I have a special glass for these occasions. It's like almost 1 liter big, so it's quite a huge glass. For American viewers, it would be the equivalent of a maybe small serving of soft drink that you used to get in theaters. Remember cinemas? Yes, those big holes where you ate popcorn and drunk slushies. Anyways, not to get too distracted. Basically, I got a bit of a gut stuff going on, but I'm getting better, so I will be chugging a liter of soft tea and a liter of vitamin C and other shit as we go. Anyways, let's go with the questions from my dear friends on Patreon. Nick Whitby asks, if a Tyranid hive fleet were to descend upon Snaid and consume it, what sort of adaptations do you imagine the hive mind would select from its genetic harvest in order to create new creatures? Okay, a little context here. Basically, let me tell you, in case you don't know, but for posterity's sake, let me talk a bit about Tyranids. They're these like all-invading insect, reptile, xenomorph, alien race from the popular tabletop gaming universe, Warhammer 40k. And they're basically an entirely organic spacefaring, not even a civilization. I mean, they are what you get. So the ships are Tyranids, the soldiers are Tyranids. They're like this one galactic hive mind of terror, basically. Coincidentally, in the Warhammer universe, they are my favorite race. I prefer them way more over those like Roman centurion lookalike humans, or those like weird elf things, or the orcs, or anything else, you know. I think my least favorite faction in that universe is the Chaos Gods. They're like, they feel like they belong to a completely different universe, but let's not get to Warhammer. Maybe one day I'll do an entire hour-long Warhammer presentation. How about that? So in the Warhammer universe, these Tyranids, they go from planet to planet in these organic ships. They consume all organic matter on that planet and then add their genes to their list of adaptations. So they're that kind of a race. Kind of a common trope these days, but when they first came out, they were quite a novelty. Also, by the way, there's a game franchise called StarCraft, and in it there's a similar invading insect alien race named the Zerg, which were, no surprise, almost directly lifted from the Tyranid concept, and that is why, to this day, Games Workshop is very sensitive about their intellectual property. There's another deep lore. So, and what is Snaid? Snaid is my personal world building project. It's been nearly 20 years working on it. It exists on my website, so if you just Google Snaid, S-N-A-I-A-D, you'll get to see it. It's basically this unique and very well detailed, for like my credit, very well detailed alien ecosystem. And now I'm not a big fan of these kinds of crossovers. Like, it's kind of like who would win in a fight, Darth Vader or Satan or Ronald Reagan, you know, that kind of like unlikely crossovers which reduce everything to their bare statistics. And I know it's kind of a messy idea for me, but since Nick Whitby spent his hard-earned money to ask me this question, I'm gonna go ahead. Maybe on the Snaid world, some large animals have hydraulic muscles, so they can make very powerful movements very rapidly. So maybe something like this might be adapted. But then again, we know that genes don't really work that way. Like, there are no genes for an elephant's trunk. The genes that result in the creation of the elephant's trunk are these like signals which tell the proteins where to go in order to lay down the nerves which reach that way. And we now know that there are a lot of like post-genetic factors involved, like epigenetics, for example. Like genes signal things to help build the things that help form the organism. So there are like several levels of separation. Also, I think, not to sound like Lamarckism, but the way an animal lives throughout its life also influences the development of its features. And this is called phenotypical plasticity. And we can see this the most effectively in cats that have been born without forelegs or stuff like that. And they travel around hopping on their hind legs like little weird dinosaur, goat kind of things. They're really bizarre. Google cat without front legs. They're really cute, actually. Now, in this case, there are no genes for a cat that hops about. Maybe it had a genetic deformity that resulted in its front legs not forming. But then anything after that animal was born, including its hopping ability, its like beefy hindquarters, etc., they were influenced by that animal's development. So like it's worked out its whole life. So of course the body changes. So there's another side tangent. What else? I mean, I don't want to spoil the Snaid rewrite, but there's also something different with the way entire trees of life develop on Snaid. And I'll leave it at that. But if the Tyranid hive mind absorbed Snaid organisms, maybe its evolutionary cycle would start radiating in a way that's not a kind of cut-off and reflowering phase as we see in real life. But it's kind of like a bizarre cladistic crown shyness in which every clade gets to radiate outwards to fill specific niches, while, in a paradoxical way that is to be explained, not driving each other completely extinct. So that was an extremely sophisticated and slightly cryptic answer, but hope that's that. But Tyranids are great. Yeah, I love those things, by the way. I like going to those Warhammer channels and listening to people talk about Tyranids. I have never owned, painted, or played with Warhammer figures, and I don't think I ever will. But I like listening to the lore behind that project. So yeah, good one there. After each answer, I'll reward myself with a sip of Cosman coffee. Or Cosman tea. Oh. Okay, Alistair McLeland asks, hello, Mr. Cosman. Not sure if I'm a little late. No, you're never late. In fact, you can already ask questions now if you're listening to this. I got a question and a would you rather. Okay, let's take the question first. What are your thoughts on the term magnum opus? Do you have a project in your eyes that you would personally call a magnum opus? Yeah, I mean, in my personal view, a magnum opus is something a person works for all his or her life. If I was just a painter, I don't know. That would be up to later generations to decide, because painters make a lot of paintings and they go to phases in which they love and hate them in weird combinations. So I would not be the judge of that. But because I also have been blessed with your gracious fandom, and through that, the realization of the fact that I'm able to write really nice and interesting stories, maybe my magnum opus will be the upcoming All Tomorrow's rewrite or the Snaid rewrite and complete re-illustration. Certainly those two books are going to be known well after I'm gone. I also have another book I'm really proud of, but it's a kind of more libraries only academic book, and that's the one that's called The Disappearing City, hand-painted street signs and urban details from 20th century Istanbul, in which for nearly 10 years I walked almost every street of a certain part of Istanbul and took pictures of these like really graceful hand-painted signs in apartment entranceways. And it resulted in a 2-volume encyclopedia of over 1,200 pages, filled with more than 6,000 color photographs. And it was a bitch to print and sell, and it's out of print, unfortunately, but it's been acquired by Columbia University, Yale University, Library of Congress. I mean, I think less than 100 copies have been sold around the world, but it's like this one of these cryptic and weird books that die-hard Kozumen aficionados will track down in the world in the years to come. Okay, and the would you rather is, time travel. Gosh, I was expecting something spicier, but okay. Would you rather time travel to a random unknown point in the Earth's distant future or the Carboniferous? Thanks and keep up the amazing work. Thanks, Alistair. Okay, tough question. A modifier here would be, am I coming back? If I'm coming back, like basically they're going to zoom me in a pod and then they're going to recall the pod in a few weeks, then maybe I would choose the distant future. And then I'd come back and tell everyone about the future and maybe avert some disasters and, maybe get a copy of the World Sports Almanac for the year 2,028,003 AD, and then bet on all the sports games and get filthy rich. That was a joke from the Back to the Future trilogy. But yeah, if I'm not coming back though, I would probably choose to go back to the Carboniferous and just vibe and chill with all the cool creatures there. In either case, I would probably be very, very scared of disease. In the Carboniferous, maybe I'd be less scared because proper warm-blooded mammals hadn't evolved. So there were no bacteria or viruses that specifically thrived in warm bodies. But still, something would get me. I mean, I would fall sick. So, like, if you're time traveling back to the Carboniferous, actually, let's make this a kind of extended side discussion. What would you get? I would probably want to be, like, beamed there in a kind of airlocked, airtight container in case I bring them pathogens or they bring pathogens to me. But heck, I mean, even if the container gets there, you're bringing some bacteria. So that's a foregone clause. Like, the world will be contaminated, I'm sorry. And probably I will be contaminated too. The kinds of viruses and bacteria adapted for my warm-blooded body would probably be OP or maladapted for the Carboniferous world, and they might have some serious impact, to be honest. In fact, I might be wrong, but the entire reason we have specifically different oil and coal reserves was due probably to the fact that there was a kind of bacteria which evolved after the Carboniferous, which made all organic deposits decay into liquid oil instead of coal. Now that's like a mind-blowing. Once again, I read this somewhere and it might not be entirely correct, so please illuminate if you know anything further about this. So like, I might go back to the Carboniferous and take a shit. Or maybe because I'm lonely, have an occasional one off the wrist and just flick that filth away into the gully. And then millions of years later, all those places in Europe which have coal beds, inexhaustible coal beds that made the Industrial Revolution possible, by the way, instead of coal, they have Kozumen oil mutated into some liquid oil that's kind of different from petroleum. Maybe it's white. Thanks to the strange bacteria I brought over. I mean, things like this, they're really mind-opening and kind of funny to think about. But imagine like somehow bacteria and viruses and pathogens were not an issue. What else would I need? I would need a water purifier, some sort of heater, and where would I be beamed? I would probably want to land on some sort of highland plateau, maybe next to a freshwater lake, next to a freshwater mountain lake. And since this is fantasy, they would also provide me with this I-Zoom-A-Boom flying drone aircraft, so I could take off from the mountain lake side which probably would be kind of desolate, to be honest. But we don't know. I mean, like, maybe there were things growing there and living there that just didn't fossilize. But even if that was the case, they would probably look like some like crawling tiny salamander thing among lichens, or moss. And then take off in my ornithopter or flying Izuma-boom drone and zoom down to the valleys to explore the endless jungle dominating the world. And that would be something. Oh God, that would be something. And then zoom back, watch, I don't know, porn from the petabytes of canned internet I brought along, and just live out my days. At some point I would want to create art, so yeah, I would also want them to occasionally ship in art supplies, but I would also make my own paint, like grindstones or like plant pigments. I would ask them to send brushes, because some hair like that would be difficult to come across. And just paint the creatures I saw during the day. God, that sounds very idyllic now that I think about it. So thanks for this prompt, Alistair, and I hope you like my answers. Day trip to the Carboniferous. Okay, Dale Durkin asks, I have a few questions. Number 1. If we discover life on Mars and eventually Europa, the moon of Jupiter, do you think it's possible that it would actually be from contamination with our own equipment and thus adapted to the local environment instead of being indigenous? That's interesting. I mean, so little time has passed between the first human artifacts landing on Mars and a future trip that it would probably be like obvious if we discovered some earthly life. I mean, they would be in the forms of bacteria. So like you go back to Mars now and you discover mutated strands of bacterium from the old 1970s Viking landers, maybe. And these would be easy to tell. I think like if we run some genetic analysis, they would be easy to tell if they're from Earth. So there. Unless another earthly sapient race landed there millions of years ago, then died out, leaving no trace, and then we discovered the somewhat more mutated stuff from their junk. But I don't know, like if we discover life there, there's a greater chance it would be indigenous, to be honest, especially in places like Europa, where conditions are more extreme, and like even if we somehow contaminated that with extremophile bacteria, genetic analysis would kind of make them obvious. Number 2 from Dale Durkin. Do you think another major group of terrestrial vertebrates will evolve in the future, assuming mammals face a mass extinction of some kind? That's also a neat question. I remember like back in the years when I thought about dominant vertebrates in terms of classes, like there are birds, there are mammals, there are reptiles, there are also dinosaurs, which are kind of birds, but so I used to think in those terms where like there's a new deal every few 100 million years or something. But now we know through cladistics that basically everything is just reptiles. If mammals go completely extinct, and I think it's completely unlikely, some other mammal-like thing could evolve from reptiles again, or maybe from birds, and in time that would become so different it would look like a special different thing of its own, just like how birds were thought to be a unique class of very special creatures, but now we know them to be proper dinosaurs. The more we understand life forms, the more blurry the lines seem, to be honest. But I remember when I was in like elementary school, I had designed a kind of like post-mammalian class of animals. And they had these like beaks formed out of their teeth, but they were also super warm-blooded. And the thing which set them apart was their innate sociality and high intelligence. So even like a mouse-like thing from this lineage had like very tightly packed neurons. So almost every species could make and use simple tools, and it was like a whole new presence on the world, changing stuff and like molding ecosystems. But I don't think mammals will ever get extinct. Like, the large mammals might, the sea mammals might. What can replace them? I don't know. Maybe some sort of post-mammal lineage. I also think that, like, the new big trend in global universal evolution is, like, at least now, the kind of humanization of many different separate lineages. We're domesticating birds, mammals, even reptiles and fish to look more like us. We are choosing forms that are kind of smarter and react more to our social cues. So that's quite bizarre, actually. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know about, like, a whole new class of things, you know. And the third question from Dale asks, do you think we are among the first civilization in the galaxy to develop, or may we find eventually others that have been around for far longer, whether dead or living? Another very, very profound question. I don't think we're one of the first civilizations, but as I explained in a previous answers video, there might be some things which make our current high-tech civilization unique. I think things like caveman level intelligence, they're quite universal. In fact, there probably are a lot of animals alive today that are as intelligent as people, we just don't recognize them. In my personal belief, I understand that all life, even the simplest flies, are self-aware and sapient, but let's not go there now. So that's pretty common. I think there will be like millions of civilizations across the universe at Roman Empire levels and like maybe even like early Renaissance levels. They just kind of rise up for a while, chill out a bit, and then die down. And this happens like 8 or 10 times until the species somehow like goes extinct or changes. I don't know. The thing that kind of makes our civilization bizarrely unique, the sort of quote-unquote Western world-consuming civilization, the demonic civilization of the 21st century, is the fact that we figured out fossil fuels. And listen, there might be worlds in which there are no fossil fuels or there are no heavy metals. So throughout its history, this planet may have thrown up, imagine 7 different species, each with Roman civilization levels of proficiency, but they all died out, leaving their ruins for the next species to ponder over. I think that's like more common across the universe than not. Of course, then again, there might have been civilizations which evolved before us, but their presence might be so strange and like so far ahead of us that we might not even understand them. Maybe they are the UFO phenomenon that everybody likes to talk about. Or maybe things like black matter, dark matter, are actually traces from a whole earlier phase of sapient galactic life. Who knows? It's certainly interesting to ponder, though. I think like if we land on Earth-like planets, we'll definitely discover ruins of some sort of civilization. But then again, you know, civilized beings may not always need to express themselves by building buildings and like weapons and shit. In fact, one might argue that the whole reason that came about was as a side product of a farming lifestyle. So there, I don't know. I'm just munching on some chocolate wafers. God, it's really hard to like keep speaking all day without making those mistakes. By the way, if you notice, I have lots of silences between words. That's my trick to cover up like, and it's really mentally taxing. It makes me tired. Talking clearly is a huge energy drain, so that's why I need to chug down these wafers. Like these fucking wafers. They're my favorite. They've been around for a generation. They used to be like nearly as long as my forearm. Then they fucking started reducing the weight. Used to be 55 grams. Now it's 35 grams. It's nearly half the size. There really is no justice in this world. Come on. All right. Okay, there. So these are Dale Durkin's questions answered. Hope you found my answers satisfactory. And whoa, okay. That's it, boys and girls. We're done with the whole series of questions. For the first round of Patreon answers, I received between the months of March and May 2023. Now, before concluding, I'll just answer an advance question from the second round by my good friend YouTube Joseph WM. And I'm pulling him this favor because he asked this question in the second round. So normally he would have to wait for another 2 months for proper answers to come. Because remember, we're still collecting questions. That being said, Joseph WM is one of my special friends, and he was really insistent, my mom paid money for this Patreon. Please, when are you going to answer my question? When are you going to answer my question? Please, Mr. Kozman, where is the answer, Mr. Kozman? I was like, tranquila, calma. Sakin. Easy there, man. And I promised to answer his question. I thought it was in the first batch. Turns out it's in the second batch, but let's not keep the guy waiting. Just for you, man. Okay. Mr. Kozman, I just joined your Patreon. Okay, thank you so much. It really means a lot when you support me, and thanks to your parents for being considerate. A few questions. Okay. First, have you seen Create Ball's All Tomorrow's Inspired series? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Yes, actually, this is the famous Create Ball channel on YouTube. A fellow friend, actually. If you go to YouTube and just search for CREE 8 as the number, BALL, you get to see Create Ball's amazing channel. So Create Ball has this really unique and subtle art style, and she or they are creating these really nice, subtle, almost like dream-like post-human creatures. And the series they're running is called All Tomorrow's Project. And it kind of started out like All Tomorrow's, but then he took it to a completely different, weird and beautiful level. And I really like this All Tomorrow's Project. On the channel, Create Ball also hosts these amazing videos about African cryptids, South American monsters, and they have a kind of deadpan humor style, which I really like. Actually, a bit of deepest lore. Basically, they had a live presentation, a live stream 7 months ago, and it was basically live streaming Create Ball's progress on art for this project. And I just logged onto YouTube one night, and this was going on. I was like, wow. And so I dropped into the chat and said hello, and then this made them so happy that, it was celebrated. And the video is called Working on My All Tomorrow's Project, featuring a very brief appearance from CM Kozman. So I really like Create Ball's work. I think it's a whole other different universe of its own. It would be within their rights to maybe change the name into Omni Future or something and just make this into a unique book of their own. It's really wonderful. The creatures are beautiful, very creative, and the art style and the presentation is really unique. So yeah, everyone go watch Create Ball's channel. Second, are you a fan of the SCP Foundation? Okay, I'm a huge fan of the SCP series. I haven't read most of the SCPs, and there are thousands and thousands of them, but it really must be celebrated as this one of the largest rhizomic, organically created collaborative horror projects out there. I think it's one of those wonderful things that the internet has graced us with. And my only thought on this series is that I hope it doesn't incorporate itself, and it always stays messy and kind of like scattered, and like all the images are copyright free. It should be a fan project. If they turn this into a sort of Hunger Games or emoji movie kind of thing, all the magic will be sucked away from it. And I read a lot of SCP creatures, but my favorite has to be the Endless IKEA Mall. I really like that for some reason. Are you also a scientist? Asks Joseph WM. Well, depends. I did not receive a scientific education, but I have numerous short note science papers published about land snails in Turkey and certain herpetological observations. If you go to my website at siamkozuman.com and just click the article sections, you can find them lurking among there. So yeah. Like on a summer vacation a couple of years ago, I took photographs of local weird snails, and turns out these are actually a imported species from Florida all the way in Turkey. And my observation was the first record of that invasive species from that particular province of the Turkish Republic. So it was an important step in documenting the spread of this introduced invaders. They're like these tiny, really strangely shaped button-like snails, and they probably arrived from imported palm trees, who knows. And they're spreading across the southwestern Turkish seaboard. I don't think they're harmful to anything. They're just this like bizarre introduced species that's interesting to keep track of. That's that. And in a trekking trip, I photographed a gecko sleeping upside down on a plant stem. And basically no photos of this species in this position on that sort of plant had been recorded before. So I was lucky to have that short note published in the German herpetological magazine Sauria. So there. Joseph WM continues his detailed questions. Where do I go on your Patreon to see your speculative evolution drawings? You just follow the posts, and I throw them out there every now and then. Also, asks Joseph, do you have a Discord server? No. I think Discord is... I don't even use a smartphone. Like, if I use Discord on my laptop, it overheats everything. I don't know what the fuck it's doing there. Maybe mining Bitcoin in the background. Who knows? But it, like, really draws so much CPU that I uninstalled Discord. I have a Discord username. Apparently Discord has numbers and shit, but I forgot what my numbers are. It's written in a notebook somewhere, and I'm just not bothered to look it up right now. Yeah, Discord is for your generation, guys. I'm beyond it. It's too ephemeral for my liking. But I don't plan to create a CM Cosman Discord server either, because if you do that, I know a lot of young friends who like are involved with Discord spec evolution projects, and it's scary and uncanny how much drama those projects create. Like, he said, she said, oh my god, this person said something racist one time, here's screen snaps, and everyone has shit on each other. It's like a Cold War. Like why are you doing this? I don't know. Look, especially when they're younger, everyone's gonna be a little asshole, and unless they're like persistent and ugly about this, I don't know. Then you got like really like awful people that, okay, they need to be banned from conversations, but you're there for speculative evolution. Why are you like wasting your time on this drama? Let someone else fight those battles. By no means I'm suggesting to like tolerate perverts or like pedophiles or like other weirdos. Like, yeah, I mean, like kill them all, sure, block them all, like fire them from the server, ban and be done with it. But it's very bizarre how like people launch these jihads against each other, and then 3 months later, oh my god, there's a jihad launched against them. And it's this whole like spectacle of drama and conflict and like fights, and like you guys are wasting precious hours of your youth where you could be drawing creatures and writing about your own projects. You're fighting other like 20 something. I mean, I don't know. And it's very, very strange to observe like these like almost medieval responsa, like also these like dramas, they're like very evidence based. So they're like these medieval courts, like people summon each other to like a special chat room to talk about basically their crimes and like account for them. That's really bizarre. It's like the sort of ground up formation of like a sort of almost medieval society. And then there are like evidence papers circulating around like this and that person's drama or like their evil doings with like evidence documenting each and every time they've been like a racist or whatever, a pedophile or whatever. It's really bizarre. And look, like many people here are very, very young. I mean, like 13, like underage. So yeah, okay, you need to be protected. But a lot of people at that age, especially young boys, they just shit talk. And it's this bizarre thing, like why, if you're gonna shit talk, meet people in real life, have a soda or whatever. Don't just write shit. I mean, why you would shit talk in writing in an ecosystem where everything is recorded for posterity? I don't know. So yeah, Discord drama, not my place. I like twice or three times in a year I appear there. That's all. So there, with these answers to Joseph's questions, we're done for the entire series. So thank you so much for your support. If you want to ask questions for the second round, the link is in the video description and in the pinned comment. And once again, thank you all so much for supporting this series. Thank you and have a nice day. This has been CM Kozeman. Goodbye.